CSU here the other day at home. Dogs, of course, had a tough go of it in conference play, as we've talked a lot about. A lot of peaks, a lot of valleys, and some ups and downs. There were a lot of good developing moments, a lot of things that have happened over the course of the season. And ironically, they've played their best ball down the stretch in a lot of runs anyway. And now you face a VMI team in the tournament. Of course, we'll look ahead to that a little bit more as we go along here. But just a kind of a general sense of how things are going right now with the team. You really have played reasonably well the last couple of weeks in a lot of games.
Well, kind of stubbed our toe a little bit up at in Greenville against Furman. Obviously we didn't perform the way we wanted to there, and that game got away from us quick. But that was the one game that where our guys, I think, for whatever reason, our shots really affected the way we played, and that was troubling. And then our last game here at home against East Tennessee State, I thought we came out, defensively especially, I thought we really had a lot of resolve. We were really connected early. And then again, they're a really good defensive team. We had 23 or 25 points at half. I thought, again, that affected us a little bit on the offensive end, just our confidence and things like that. And so when we started scoring in the second half, we probably had as good a half against them as any team has this year. We had 45 points. I think we had a 1.5 points per possession, which we grade every game, and that's really good. But we literally just became trading baskets, and you can't do that if you want to win in March in advance.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like we were, if I remember correctly, clockwise, we're about 11 or 12 minutes into the game, and you're battling toe-to-toe with them, and then all of a sudden a couple of things go awry, a turnover here, a steal there, and all of a sudden they hit a couple of threes, and it just jumped to a lead that you really, as you talked about trading baskets, it's hard to overcome.
It is, but you have to stay connected on that defensive end, and we just made a couple of substitutions where not any one person's fault, but just the connected of playing together. There's a chemistry on defense, and that's just as important as on the offensive end. We always talk about it on the offensive end, like passing, making shots, but it's just as important to be connected defensively. Knowing when this guy goes to rotate, how he does that and the timing of it, and I'm going to cover down for him. So there was just a lot of those mistakes we made in the second half.
Well, once you got into conference play, there was an obvious learning curve of sorts to, I guess, adapt to the level of SoCon play. As you always talk about, it's a pretty rugged league, and you had guys that transferred in here. But as the season wound along, and particularly when you got into the second half of the season, it seems like they had kind of found the tempo of it and had kind of, you know what I mean, you're in all these games and you're really battling for tooth and nail and have a lot of close ones down the stretch.
No question, but and then you hope that they get some confidence, and once you get accustomed to it, and then they can push through and get some of those wins. Unfortunately, you can play good basketball, but if you don't go to the line and make your free throws, you don't execute in a clutch situation, it's going to be hard to come out with that win. And we just had too many of those situations where we didn't convert at the free throw line, or we didn't make that key stop or basket in a key possession. And so I think what's disguised in some good moments of basketball and a lot of competitive play, the one-loss record, obviously, and there's an old Parcells saying, you are what your record says you are, and so we have to swallow that, and hopefully it doesn't deter us from going forward, but it makes our resolve even greater.
As a coach and as a teacher, I suspect I know how you'll answer this, but in some respects, seasons like this, as you watch guys develop, acclimate, gel, all the things that happen during the journey of a season, these in a broad sense, especially as you look back on them, you're just as fond of these seasons as you are any as you go along, aren't you?
Well, you're fond of the guys and their development. Obviously, you're fitting for them, but winning is hard and losing is really tough on the soul. It rips you apart, and you hate to see that for those young guys as well. And I cherish anybody who's in our program. I know each year goes quickly, and those 4 years really fly by. So you only have so many chances at it. And we're still alive. We still have a chance in March Madness. We get 4 chances at that during the normal guy's college career, at least the way it used to be. And so we're gonna go there and give it our best shot.
Guys have spoken of this from the beginning of the season, certainly before that, in Brody's case, in a feature piece in the paper way back. There has been a great chemistry. There's been a great work ethic among this group. This group has been, they've had fun together, through all the tough times, and they've been out there battling their butts off for a long time here.
They have. I cannot fault them at all, our work ethic. their approach to it. We've been going at it since back in June. Off the court, no issues. Been tremendous in the classroom. All serious students, all really high character guys, and you need that to go through kind of some of the adversity we've gone through from a one last standpoint, and they've stuck together that way. So from a family type standpoint, the family's still together, and they're still battling and they're still fighting out. But as I tell them all the time, people use this analogy always, but a team is not a family. Like we are put together to accomplish a mission, and that mission is we still have time on that clock, as I said, but we need to find a way. And all those inches I always believe that those inches that we're fighting for are around us out there somewhere, and we got to find them and find a way to knock through.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. As tough a year as it can be, you still have a chance to really close with a flourish. It's in your hands to go out there and work together and make it happen.
Yep. We get to do this, as my daughter always reminds me. Right. And so we get to go to Asheville, and on Friday night we get a chance to play in a conference tournament, which is part of March Madness and one of the oldest conference tournaments in the country. And so we're thrilled with that opportunity.
How do you feel? I mean, obviously you play who you play, but how do you feel about situations where teams that know each other really well meet 3 times in a season? Obviously you've had 2 very close games with them. They had a little bit more of a margin in their place, which is so tough. Now you get them at a neutral site, and again, we'll break down VMI a little bit more as we go along in the program, but just from a general sense, 3rd time around, it's not like you're not familiar.
No, I've said this numerous times, but one of the things I love about our league is that we play everybody twice, and by the time you get to tournament play, it's the 3rd time with whoever we would play, and it's not like that in every league. And so, I'm thrilled that we get a chance to do that, and I look forward to it.
Yeah, right as we say that, the door opens and 6 or 7 familiar faces come in. Good to see a bunch of the guys joining us here. Yeah. This is presented, of course, by Cutwater Spirits, Beyond the Barracks. We do this every Monday, and as I'm told, at least for the time being, this will be the last one we'll do for a while. So, obviously, we got to make this one a really good one.
Well, it's always good when you're at. I haven't had the Dunleavy's popcorn in a while, but it's they're full over there and plenty of it. So come on, we got a good group.
I'll tell you what I think we ought to do. If you win 4 games in 4 days, as you're talking about, then let's do another one.
Let's do it.
We could probably coordinate that.
We can get that done.
We're live at Dunleavy's, though, and Beyond the Barracks is presented by Cutwater Spirits. So a bunch of potential guests just walked in the door, Coach. Preview who you're going to tell to come over here.
Well, I think we get Christian Scholler to give their thoughts.
Yeah,
tonight,
that's a good one. We'll move into those guys here in just a couple of moments. You're listening to Beyond the Barracks. You're also watching Beyond the Barracks. I need to remember that this is a visual medium also. Last week I stood up from the table and started taking the stuff apart, Coach, before they signed off the video feed. So that's the old radio guy in me. We will take a break right here. We are back with more after this. You're listening to Beyond the Barracks on the Citadel Bulldogs Radio Network. now. The Southern Conference tournament for Citadel basketball. Of course, they will take on VMI. That is a 7:30 tip on Friday, which would put us on the air at 7 o'clock. But we are back at Dunleavy's as we recap the 2025 Citadel Bulldogs basketball season. And they're going to bring me a player in just a minute, I promise. And one of the players will join us here in just a couple of moments. But, yeah, it's been obviously an interesting, kind of an up and down type of year for the Dogs. They started off in reasonable fashion early in the season. They really had arguably the best performance of the season in the Stetson game, looking all the way back in terms of a total team performance. But obviously conference play was tough, and there is an attrition thing in basketball that kind of set in on the Dogs and didn't end up regular season-wise being a spectacular year. Joining us now is Shola Adebisi, and man, it's been fun to watch you play basketball this year. Obviously, welcome back to the show, and how are things holding up for you?
Pretty good so far. Just looking to get a good week of practice going into the conference tournament.
When you look back over, and the course of the year, this group, it's obvious, has really good chemistry, man. You guys enjoy being around each other. Everybody's battled their tail ends off, and everybody's kept working and grinding, trying to keep a good attitude and all that stuff. There's a unique culture in every program, isn't there?
Yeah, that's true. I think it all started over the summer. I was spending a lot of time together doing things outside around Charleston, so we built that bond from there, and it's taken off since then.
So many things over the course happen in a basketball season. It's a journey. Each season you get to be a part of is a journey. That story unfolds different ways for every team every year. And it seemed like, in this case, I was talking to somebody a minute ago, that the Stetson game, if you look all the way back to that, it's kind of like that was a game where everything got all put together. You fired on all cylinders. You guys played really well on defense. You hit shots from outside. Everything went beautifully. And it was a 20-point win over a defending conference champion that went to the tournament. But not every game unfolds the same way, and things happen during the course of a year.
Yeah, that's true. I think once you get into conference play, especially, things get a lot more tough. You have to learn ways to win in conference play because the other team knows exactly what you're going to do and stuff like that.
There were some good tests for you guys along the way, too. I mean, the Campbell game at some point, really in the second half, it seemed like they found some ways defensively to slow you guys down. And it seemed like that Campbell game was one that took something out of you. But the one that seemed like a turning point downer type of game was that Central Arkansas game out there.
Yeah.
73-71, right? Now, you guys would fall back as far as like 15, 17 points in the end. You kept battling your way all the way back, but that one had to be one of the bigger heartbreakers of the year.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I don't even know what to say about that game.
Right.
Yeah,
it was a bizarre game in a lot of ways because it kept seeming like they were pulling away, and then you guys would go on a tear and you'd start to hit some baskets and you'd fight your way right back in. Honestly, one of the more entertaining games of the year, even though, of course, it didn't end right.
Yeah, true. I completely agree.
It sort of set the scene, though, for what a lot of these conference games went like, too, where you're really right there. You're right there at the end of the game, or, within a possession or two at the end of the game. And it's just one little thing or another. So it really illustrates, man, that the old coaching adage that winning is hard.
Yeah, it's very difficult. Everybody has to stay mentally engaged the whole game because it's a 40-minute game. We can't play good for 38 minutes and then fall off. That's when we'll lose those games.
So you're from Alpharetta, you're in the Atlanta area, and I'd love to get your thoughts just on what the Citadel experience has meant to you. I mean, beyond, of course, just basketball, but the Citadel experience and being part of things here.
It's been good so far, especially with the academic side. I'm learning a lot in my classes in terms of leadership and things like that. And obviously I enjoy Charleston as a city, so I'm enjoying it.
There's always kind of a brotherhood, I think, on rosters in most sports each season and all that stuff, and that has seemingly been really, really strong with this group. I mean, honestly, going through all this adversity has probably only made you guys closer.
Yeah, that's true. Going through the adversity makes it tough at times, but we're able to stick together and stay close.
From a vocal standpoint, when you lose a couple of heartbreaker games like some of these overtimers and this and that, are there particular guys that are more vocal than others that challenge people to keep their head up and keep grinding, or is that a team-wide thing?
I'd honestly say it's a team-wide thing. Everybody has their own thing to say, and we sprinkle it through like practice and halftime and stuff like that. But everybody vocalizes what they're thinking throughout the course of the season.
As it relates to your season, I mean, again, these are journeys, and while not every game is going to be that much fun if you don't win it, there still are great times that you've had along the way. What are some of the highlights for you individually as you look back over this year that you've really enjoyed? There were some really good runs for this team, too.
Well, like you mentioned before, I'd say the Stetson game. The Stetson game showed us how good we could truly be when we play as a team. Then even though obviously we lost these other games like Furman, the Wofford game that went to overtime, Western, VMI both times, those were all enjoyable experiences and showed how good we can actually be as a team.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic because this team definitely showed constant flashes of putting good runs together, and it's a credit. Of course, you don't want to fall behind double digits. You don't want to be down 17, 18 points, but they showed a real resilience in being able to battle their way back into games all year, even if they didn't get all the way over the top. And there's something to be said for that. There's no moral victories, but you know where I'm going with this. There's still a lot that goes into that.
Yeah, that's true. It's just a credit to how everybody plays on a team. Everybody's fighting their hardest and trying to win. So.
Yeah, the current landscape. So as you look at the SoCon tournament, and as you remember, the games against VMI, what are your thoughts on them? And beating a team 3 times is hard, man.
Yeah, that is true. The thing is about VMI compared to the other teams in the SoCon, they're the only team that plays the zone for the whole game, so it's a bit different of a game. We have to prepare well for that and know how to attack it, what type of shots we need to take, and stuff like that. So.
Both games that you played against them were really close. The one, I'm sure you remember, you were out there for it, the game up there, the atmosphere they create, that's an imposing place to play in as a visiting player, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if I would say it's imposing, but
I just mean for the more, it fires you up.
Yeah, it's more exciting. Like I wasn't feeling well going into the game, but once I got out there for warm-up lines, the crowd just energized me, and I was able to get through it.
From a familiarity standpoint, what are the things you feel like you guys have to do better against them than you did the last 2 times?
Since they're playing that zone, I feel like we could attack them well on the boards and make sure we're getting those guys on the boards and creating extra opportunities. And then we have to be able to guard them in the half court, slow them down, and then finish the possession with a rebound. So,
there's a lot of this to some degree in every sport. I mean, I think football and basketball are probably most prominent, but the smack talk that goes on the floor during the course of a game.
Yeah.
So is it more intense like it is with football? I mean, way more intense like it is with football when it's VMI? Is there more smack going on out there when it's VMI?
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot more pride that goes into the game, considering we're the only 2 military institutions in the conference.
I mean, it's good-natured to whatever degree, but you really want to beat those guys, too.
It's all competitive at the end of the day, but it's enjoyable. So.
When you look back over the conference season, I mean, was it what you expected in terms of how rugged it is, how physical it is? Every team seems like in this conference is blessed with guys that will just kill you from outside if you don't get somebody out there on.
Yeah, Coach Conroy did emphasize this when I first got here. Like, the SoCon is a big 3-point shooting league, and most teams, they have 5 guys that can shoot the ball on the court at all times. Whether it's their 5-man or their point guard, they can all shoot it from behind the 3-point line.
How vocal are you out there? I mean, to some degree, sitting courtside, I see some of it, and I certainly see some of the communication on the floor, but not all of it. How vocal a guy are you? And obviously, everybody plays the game differently.
Yeah, I try to be as vocal as possible with my teammates, whether it's putting them in right positions on defense or telling them what we need to do on offense, how to attack their defense. I try to be as vocal as possible.
I've always been fascinated by the communication part of that stuff anyway, and how much of that on-field communication and everybody being on the same page matters. I mean, on field or on court, but everybody being on the same page and communicating with each other a certain way. It's the difference a lot of times between winning games and not winning games.
Yeah, it definitely is. All 5 people, even the players on the bench, everybody on the bench has to be connected and know how we're trying to attack the other team.
So who was so far, in your estimation, what was the most grueling opponent in terms of the SoCon? Which was the toughest one to solve? Obviously, you guys had a couple of rough games against Samford, for instance, and their style was a little bit unique.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask your thoughts on that style in a minute, but what was the most grueling opponent you had to face, the one that took the most out of you over the course of the year?
I would honestly say, I was going to say the Samford game, regardless of what you said, because of the way that they play. That press 24/7, it's hard to go against. You have to be poised and control in order to go against that. And that takes everybody, not just the guard handling the ball. All 5 people need to be ready to help and receive the ball.
You've been at this a while, though. You're still a young player, man. You got a lot of eligibility left, all that stuff. But what are your thoughts on some of the guys, the freshmen that came in and have contributed a lot, and more so as the season's gone along? Obviously, Eze has played a really key role of late. Love to get your thoughts on his progress, and also Dante and some of the others.
Yeah, I think the freshmen that are in the rotation, even the ones that aren't, they all have their own special, unique talents. And Christian, even though he's a redshirt freshman, so he's not technically a true freshman.
Right.
Like him, Christian, Dante, they're all able to contribute to the team in their own way. And I'm really excited for what the future holds.
Honestly, Christian's development's been one of the great stories this year, and you've obviously been on the floor with him a lot of the time. And just seeing him come back from what he went through, and every year, whether it's a tough year or not, there are still great stories that come from it, and he's one of them this year.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think at first he was struggling a little bit because he was coming back from that big injury, but once he got his confidence back, you could see like the sky's the limit with him.
So talking about the Samford, have you ever faced an attack like that before? That I mean, they not only pretty much press you the entire game and they're right in your uniform with you, but they also run, gun, and they hit 3-pointers like they're going out of style.
Yeah,
it's a crazy style of basketball. It's up tempo.
Yeah, maybe like one time in my AAU days, but. Excuse me. Other than that, I really haven't played against that style.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, it's just such a dramatic difference for the most part for me in this role calling games. When you get to this team and suddenly got like 20, 21 guys out there in uniform, and they never really have to worry about having fouls to give because they got all those bodies out there. It's just a unique style, but it's kind of oppressive, buckyball.
Yeah, they play like 12 people, so even if somebody gets a foul, they're coming right out. They're throwing another fresh body in there. So.
Well, other than it being the Citadel where you want to win 4 games in 4 days, as you look at the SoCon tournament, having faced all these opponents, who do you think would be the odds-on favorite to win it, or are there really 3 or 4 that would be the odds-on favorite to win it?
I'm really not too sure. I don't know if I'd say there's one favorite to win it all, because you really just need to be playing your best basketball right now. So every team is trying to take it one game at a time and just win their matchup. So
we were talking about Samford, but down the stretch of the season, a couple other teams knocked Samford off, and so they don't end up with the regular season title thing, going into the tournament. So interesting dynamic. But yeah, UNCG's been really good. Yeah. Chattanooga's been really good. And I'll keep going back to it forever. But the game you guys put in against Chattanooga, over there or up there, that told you that you were at least capable of getting this done. It just didn't happen for whatever reason.
Yeah, most definitely. It would just take that continual effort for the whole 40 minutes in order to be in the spot to win the game at the end. So
how do you bottle that up and take it on the floor in Asheville against VMI Friday?
I think one thing is we could go back and watch those games and see those possessions where we had that complete effort, whether it was on the defensive end or the offensive end, and we need that for the whole 4 minutes, and we need to emphasize that this week during practice. We can't have any bad possessions because every possession matters at this point.
Well, it's been a lot of fun to watch you play this year, man, and obviously we appreciate the time you've spent with us, and it's, look, the beauty of tournament basketball is if all of a sudden you get hot and you win a game, then you win another game, and the next thing you know, who knows?
Yeah, that's
Even
true.
After a tough season, it can go that way.
That's very true. It's very true.
As crazy a year as it's been in a lot of respects with some of the weird overtime games, it'd almost be fitting that you'd go win a couple games in the tournament, maybe 4 of them.
Yeah, that would be nice. That's what we're looking
What
to do.
What a fantastic story that would be.
Yeah, I know.
But, Shola, man, really appreciate it, and we will look forward to seeing you in the tournament on Friday night.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, Shola Adebisi of the Dogs spending time with us here as we come to you live from Dunleavy's Pub. We're on Sullivan's Island tonight, and this is Beyond the Barracks, presented by Cutwater Spirits. I'm Brian Giffen, the radio voice of the Dogs. Shola will step away, and we'll bring another player over in just a moment. But right here, we'll take a time out. Back with more after this. You're listening to the Citadel Bulldogs Radio Network. bow, at least on the regular season for Citadel basketball. The Dogs, of course, now will take on VMI. That'll be Friday night. That'll be a 7:30 tip in Asheville at the Harrah's Cherokee Center, and we'll, of course, have radio coverage of that broadcast at 7 o'clock as the Dogs and VMI will get together for the third time this year. VMI won both games a little bit earlier this season. They won by 5 at McAllister Fieldhouse, a game the Dogs really battled their way back into but couldn't quite get over the top in at the end. VMI won by a little bit larger margin, 10, when the two teams met in Lexington, and thus the Dogs, you know, the old adage that it's hard to beat a team 3 times, and the Dogs are going to aim for the third time to be the charm against VMI. Christian Moore is going to sit down and join us right now, and as soon as he climbs in here and installs the headset, we'll bring him aboard and get some thoughts on all this. Dogs do take on a VMI team that's substantially different than the VMI that we saw a year ago. Christian, it's good to have you aboard, man, and obviously, you know, whatever the regular season holds for you, the tournament is kind of a whole new opportunity, and look, the work ethic, the approach, none of that stuff ever changes.
Yeah, it never does. I mean, it'll be my first time playing in the tournament, so I'm really excited. I know we have some experienced guys like John Adams and Cam Glover who've played in the tournament at different levels, so we'll see. We'll see what it's like. It'll be my first time, so I'm really excited.
It's been fun to watch you play this year, man. So, I mean, just from the story standpoint, as we've talked a lot about before, but it speaks to how important confidence is, doesn't it? I mean, you came back from a really, really rough injury, and it took you a long time to do it. You had to really, I guess, grind away at it, soul search, stay here, work your tail off, all those things. But in the end, you know, yours is a story of resilience, perseverance, and now you've put together a really good season.
Yes, sir, I've tried my best. It's obviously been a learning experience because it's my first real year, making it to conference, and it's just been a different experience for me. But I would definitely say, that I'm definitely excited about how the season went in some aspects. Obviously, you don't want to go 0-18 in conference, but I feel like we as a team have made a lot of steps. I feel like me, myself, I've made a lot of steps towards in a great direction, so I'm excited about that.
I was telling Coach earlier, this is just an observation from where I've sat watching these games, but really, from the first go-around in conference, it took you guys a few games to kind of start to, I guess, find or adapt to the speed and the physicality of conference play, and that's rugged in the SoCon. But as you got really into the second half of conference play, you're in many more of these games, unless you just have one of those nights where nobody can hit a basket from any angle, and that does happen to teams, but it's just been one of those really strange years in a lot of respects, and it just reminds you how important every little tiny thing is.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, we just have to get really better at everything, in all honesty, because like a lot of games, like I said, we lose by 2-3 points. At Western, we lost them by I think 3 points in both games.
Right.
So it's just like we know we're not far off. It's just about we're refining what we do, and that hopefully will give us the 5-point edge we need to win or lose these games.
From the standpoint of mental toughness, there's no question it's been a heck of an exercise for you guys this year, because you've had to bounce back from some of these really devastating defeats where, you know, you thought you guys hit the game-tying 3 at Western, and then it's disallowed. You thought you won the game at Chattanooga, and then it's taken in. The calls were right both times, but circumstantially, those fractions of a second, and really in more cases than just those, it's been an astounding year in a lot of respects in that way, hasn't it?
It definitely has, but I mean, I'm just really proud of our guys and how we've continued to keep fighting. I think we've been kind of like iguanas, just with tough skin,
right,
and just being able to honestly take the hits as they go and just still keep playing through it, and just still having the mindset of we're going to go into these games expecting to win, even though they haven't happened in our favor. It's it's honestly been kind of remarkable to me just seeing how none of the guys in the locker room have really faded or faltered,
right,
and they're still just putting one foot in front of the other and doing everything they can to help win games, and it's inspiring, in all honesty.
I would love to get your take on, you know, how you feel in your academic and development career as a cadet at the Citadel as you've gone along. I mean, undoubtedly the injury situation added to the level of challenge you had to deal with in that regard too, and there's so much more to it than I don't want to say just being a student playing basketball, but you're a cadet student athlete that's playing basketball.
Yeah, this semester has definitely been harder than any of the past 3 semesters we've had. It's been hard because we're away so often, like half the Wednesdays and half the Fridays we're away, and it's just hard keeping in contact with like your teachers and your professors and things like that, just keeping up with group projects and everything like that. But it also speaks to like resilience because like other guys are doing it too, so it's like who am I to like falter in my grades or anything like that?
Right. I was talking to Shola about this too. You know, when you look back over the course of a season, there's so many little peaks, valleys, ups, downs, forks in the road, whatever it is that happen in the course of a season. And on one end, you look back at that Stetson game. It seemed like and you really had not ramped fully up yet then, but it seemed like that night the team fired on all cylinders. Everything kind of worked the way it was supposed to. You got a good sense, okay, this is how this is going to look this year. And for whatever reason, you know, one thing or the other, be it attrition or be it, you know, an area of the game where maybe some nights not everybody makes every single free throw. It's the way it is in basketball. But over the course of the year, it doesn't seem like you guys ever quite recaptured the swagger you had that night. Am I wrong?
No, I don't think you are. Even in some of the games that we won after the Stetson game, it didn't feel like we weren't necessarily clicking on all cylinders like we were that game. I don't know what it is. I know we're still that team, and we're still fighting to be that team. Obviously, we've had some guys who have gone down and things like that.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, we have to keep being resilient and honestly kind of jingle jointed, as Coach Conroy said today. I'm still not sure what that means, but I think he was talking about just our resilience and just like who are we when things get tough. Like we've learned a lot about ourselves this year because it has not been easy. But like that Stetson game was a great game, and it showed us what we can be when we are at our top level.
Little did we know that, and this is just my own perspective, but again, from the standpoint of milestones in a season, little did we know the night that Central Arkansas game went the way it did, that was kind of going to be a preview of a lot of the games that would happen during the course of the year, where you're just right there and can't quite get over the mountain.
Yeah, it has been like that a lot, but like I said, we are right there. We've had about 5 to 7 of these games that we've just been like single possession games. So now that we're going into conference, and realistically, like what we did before conference, it doesn't matter anymore. So we know like we're right there. We are right there.
Can you imagine? I mean, you have a chance to still write a great story.
Yeah,
you really do. I mean, honestly, if anything puts a chip on your shoulder, it would be the fact that we had this tough season, and now we're going to make yours tough.
Yeah, I mean, we've been swept by every single team in the league, so we're going into conference like we're realistic. We have nothing to lose. We're a dangerous team.
Right.
So I mean, and it's hard to beat a team 3 times.
Right.
So anything could happen in the tournament. So we're all really excited. We're all fired up. We're all just ready to go.
You didn't get to play VMI last year, so obviously you wouldn't have perspective of that. But you did, however, play against them twice this year. They were a tough out. I mean, they assembled a really good team over there. They brought in some transfers and things like that, and they were a really, really tough team twice.
They're definitely a tough team. They're a very good team. They have great players. They're really well coached. So we honestly we have to come in with the focus of like, and honestly an understanding that like we gave them 2 good games. So, I mean, the first game we at home we lost by 5.
Right.
The second game I believe we lost by 12, but we had to foul at the end. So we know we're right there with them. So it'll be a great matchup, especially down in Asheville, a neutral site where anything could happen. So we're all really excited for the opportunity.
What was it that they did especially well that's going to be tough for you guys to navigate around on Friday?
They make adjustments really well. Like the first game I hit a few threes, and the second game they had the exact same way that I hit those threes. They'd adapted to it. So they're just really resilient as well. I mean, they're obviously another military school, so they're used to like, you know, having to adapt to things and like I said, being resilient. So regardless, they're a good team, but so are we. So we'll see what happens come Asheville.
You know, I asked Shola about this too. In the course of every season, I mean, again, these are journeys that you get to be a part of. Each year you get to be around this. But in the course of each season, you still have a series of highlights and things that are highlights for you personally, individually, you know, great memories from it. I mean, in the big book of all this stuff, every chapter means about the same.
That is true. I mean, we've definitely had some, even though like we haven't won very many games, we've definitely had some great memories. one of my personal memories is like the Furman game where my dad was at. The first one, he wasn't able to come to the second one at home. Obviously, we lost.
Played at Furman, but
yes,
mix that in there.
Yeah, we lost obviously, but it was nice knowing that like I was there playing against my dad's alma mater. I'm sure he felt proud. Knowing that one still hurts though, because knowing I had that last shot in my hands, but. Well, we'll see him again.
Chemistry. Chemistry is a big part of this deal, and you guys spend more time, obviously, as players and together than you do with your families, any of that stuff. It's the nature of this whole thing.
Yes.
How would you assess that? It seems like the chemistry of this group's been really, really good, and some games aren't going to be as good as others, but that's part of that never-say-die thing, though, that has enabled you guys to at least battle your way back in these things.
Yeah, definitely. Our chemistry is really great. We have a really tight-knit locker room. Like, we have guys who like you want to fight for, guys that you were willing to go to war for. Like we're all going to go to war for John Adams, Cam Glover, all those guys know it's their last game. Or any game could potentially be those last games. We're trying to go to war for like the guys who like went down this year, who got hurt, right? Like Aiden Alexander who hurt his ankle, and like Graham who went down with mono. So like we're honestly just trying to like fight for our teammates, and honestly just try to just make them proud, give them something to celebrate.
What's the most important thing you guys need to do to get past VMI and win a game up there?
We need to play together. Everyone has to be on the exact same page. We have to understand what we're doing, understand what we're looking for, and if we do that, we have a great chance.
Appreciate it, man. As always, it's been fun to watch you play. Look forward to doing it a bunch more.
Yes, sir.
All right. That is Christian Moore, the dog, spending time with us here. And Christian has really come on. Second half of the season in particular, this thing has wound along. And hopefully, hey, you still got the hits and playing your best ball right now, man. Go at them.
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
All right. This is Beyond the Barracks. It's presented by Cutwater Spirits. We're live tonight at Dunleavy's Pub on Sullivan's Island. It took me an extra syllable in there from somewhere. But this is, by the way, the last episode of Beyond the Barracks for a while now. With basketball season winding down, we will, of course, update you with more as we look ahead in the coming years. So might mix in an occasional piece or two from baseball, but of course we carry those games on 102.1 The City, and we broadcast a great many of those as we go along. Right here we take a time out. We're back with more. Coach Conroy and I will preview the VMI game a little bit more extensively, and we'll have that for you after this. You're listening to the Citadel Bulldogs Radio Network. back up here now as the Dogs take on VMI. That'll be the third meeting between the two this year, and it'll happen in Asheville Friday night at 7:30. Pregame show for us at 7 o'clock. Again, very, very familiar opponent. You know what you're up against. What are the keys for you?
Well, they're a good basketball team, and they've had a very a solid year. They brought in they got several transfers who are very experienced players, and they do a good job with their zone defense. And so they'll mix it up and change it on you several times throughout the game. So it's really important. And we've done this twice well against them. We've turned it over I think 11 times once and 9 the other time. So 10 a game, I'll take that because they tend to get some key baskets out of pressure and out of their zone. But we've done a good job there. Where we haven't done a good job against them is we fouled them too much.
Right.
They've both been on Saturdays in the Southern Conference, which fouls tend to be a little higher on those days, as we talked about before. But we still, in guarding them, they've broken us down one-on-one, and they've gotten us in some bad matchups or bad positioning. And so we need to guard better without fouling, keep them off the free throw line. And then Ricky Bradley, who was at VMI, left and then transferred back in. He's done an excellent job for them out front. They really play with 2 point guards, and both guys are good going off the ball screens. And Bradley especially has had big games against us, so we'll need to do a better job with him in that matchup and find a way to get him under control a little bit. But good opponent. And Andrew Wilson, I've said this before. He does a great job with them, and known coach a long time, and just has done a really good job putting this team together. Everybody can talk about having money or not having money in the NIL and the collective and the portal and how guys transfer in. Well, they brought in several transfers this year, but you still have to put the team together. And I think they did an outstanding job of making sure the pieces fit and playing a way that group can be successful. And all the credit in the world to Andrew and his staff. And I just think they've done a fabulous job.
And that's really the key to it. It's more than how you go about getting them. It's making sure that you need to get them and that they're the pieces that fit.
Well, and it's hard. You've seen programs around the country, storied programs, but it's hard every year. We all work really hard to try to make sure the chemistry is right. Both on and off the floor. And off the floor is one issue, but on the floor, we're so much of that basketball. That's the great thing about basketball is it's about so much more than basketball. Like, how do these 5 guys fit, play together, complement each other, and the group that they have out there, they all have a role, a pretty well-defined role. You can kind of tell what they are by looking at them. You can tell, how they play the game, what they're focused on, and they've stuck together with that. And it's been hard. You see, like I said, you see many teams around the country that it's been elusive to try to find that chemistry on the floor. And VMI is one team that's played pretty connected all year. They've had some tough losses lately, and some big ones, but they're like us. They've been in a lot of games.
You're talking about their guards, and that's one of the things I think that stood out in both games is just how well both those guards really ran the game for them.
They both have the ability to use ball screens and come up, and like I said, they're playing with 2 point guards out there, and both are different, but they both can give you trouble that way. And then the big guy they have inside is crafty, and he finds a way just to score enough and stay out of foul trouble and things like that. And so then they have a guy out there that's kind of a shooting specialist, and another guy who's a rebounding specialist. And like I said, their pieces just fit, where you always have a team that can find consistency. And like I said, when they've been in league play, I think they're 13 and 18 right now. But they've been consistent all year because their roles have been pretty well defined.
When you scout and/or develop a game plan, for lack of a better term, against an opponent so familiar, how in depth do you have to go to find different ways to go at them, or is it as much different ways to go at them as it is just ways to do better at containing them?
Well, a biggest part of this, I think you can keep improving all the way to the end as far as a player and as a team. And so a big part of these practices this week, because we have more days to prepare than we normally would, you want to stay sharp, but you don't want to wear the guys out. I mean, the plan is to go there and win 4 games in 4 days, so you don't want to just grind them, in practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But you can go hard. You just shorten up the practice. You also, in my mind, I think at this time of year, you have to go with, you keep it simple. Go with your bread and butter, because it's going to come down to players making plays and making adjustments. And whatever we do to VMI against their zone early on, if we're having success they're going to change how they're guarding within the zone, just like we would make adjustments. And so we got to, when they counter that, we have to counter them back. And if you get too complicated and you have too many different things you're thinking about going, you can kind of get your guys kind of on their heels a little bit or playing a little tentative, and that's not what you need at this time of year. They know what to do by now. They need to go make those plays.
You're through attrition, you're obviously playing without guys that you have played with certain amounts of the year, and that's just the nature of it as the season unfolds. But does it change a little bit how you guys go about things when you don't have certain people as opposed to when you do, based on what you have, matchups? You always say basketball is all about matchups.
Oh, it really is, and I think that's the one thing that, like, when you're attacking the zone as the offensive team, you're in charge of the matchups because you can put guys,
right,
wherever on the floor, and with different guys being available during the course of the year, it's hard sometimes. You don't want to change everything for one game, but you need to tweak some things. But this is a case where we need to adjust our lineup a little bit and make sure the right guys are getting those shots in the areas that we think will be open against that zone, and making sure that other guys are more facilitators in that until they make some adjustments, if you will.
You've talked about this before, how it's when you're essentially kind of building a roster year in and year out. It's just the realities of the times that we're in. Sometimes if it takes you a while to find your stride and all that stuff, then even if it's really near the end of the season, you still have an opportunity in this tournament format to find it and go make a story.
Oh, no question. And I think one opponent we were really familiar with last year, we played them, NC State.
Right.
At this time last year, NC State then became kind of the story of the year as far as because they got hot at the right time in their conference tournament and carried that right over on into the NCAA tournament. And so it can happen. You hope you can. You're always striving to find that identity, something you can really count on and make other people change for you. And instead of you trying to adapt to whatever they're doing, and that can still happen. And I've seen it many times.
Well, of course, the entire Southern Conference is just such a rugged deal anyway. And it's interesting with the roster dynamics these days, how rosters change year to year. But the one thing that never changes, I guess, is really the style of play, the toughness of play, and the culture of play here in this conference.
Yeah, and every year, I think it's now 8 years in a row we've been between 10 and 15 out of the 32 leagues in the country. And the one thing that's always been constant for 30, 40 years now has been the three-point shooting. Has always been a big deal in this league, and we usually have a lot of bigs that are very skilled, and so that'll be on display, I'm sure, in Asheville.
It's been a lot of fun, and obviously the beauty of getting to do this is the same thing. Honestly, I remember some of the best times in baseball, even if you'd really been on a tough streak, all of a sudden you put a couple of wins together, and it changes the whole dynamic. That's all it takes.
Well, I would love to see this group get rewarded for that. Right. They've hung together all year. They've hung tough. They compete hard. They represent well. If they can push through and start getting some wins and see if we can't get on a roll, it'd be great.
Well, it's been a lot of fun regardless, and obviously we'll look to have some fun against VMI. We look forward to the trip up there, and obviously I'll catch up with you on Friday before the game, and we'll be ready to go.
Thank you. Go Dogs.
All right, Coach Conroy, on what is, at least for the time being, our final episode of Beyond the Barracks, presented by Cutwater Spirits. We are live tonight at Dunleavy's Pub on Sullivan's Island. I'm Brian Giffen. I want to say thanks to Coach Conroy, who now slips out and will go rejoin the masses. Christian Moore also, and also Shola Adabisa, and all of you who locked us in both on video and on radio. And last but not least, all you spectacular people that are here, appreciate each and every one of you also. That'll do it for us. We will talk to you Friday night, everybody, from Asheville. Airtime 7 o'clock. With the pregame show, and then, of course, the opening tip between the Dogs and the Keydets of VMI to follow at 7:30. Thanks to Joe Mack. As always, we will talk to you tomorrow on Fan Talk, everybody. That'll do it for us. Good night, and go Dogs.